Venezuela's special voter registration process began this Monday as the country prepares for parliamentary elections in December. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization noted on Monday that the COVID-19 pandemic could tip over 100 million more people into chronic hunger by the end of 2020. Ivory Coast Vice President Daniel Cablan-Duncan stepped down this Monday. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, and I'm Katrina Goss. We begin in Venezuela, where the special voter registration process began this Monday to guarantee the maximum citizen participation in the parliamentary elections to be held on December 6. The process will be extended until July 26, while 551 registration points have been activated across the country under strict health measures due to the COVID-19 pandemic. During the next 2 weeks, Venezuelan voters will be able to register or update their personal information, such as changing their address and polling station. More than 1,100 electoral agents will be on hand to assist voters between 8 a.m. and 1 p.m. every day. Colombia is facing a critical situation due to the rapid spread of the novel coronavirus. The increase in COVID-19 cases places Colombia as the fourth most affected country in South America, reporting more than 150,000 cases and over 5,000 fatalities. The spread of the virus in the country coincides with the economic reopening plan promoted by the national government. Meanwhile, health workers denounced a lack of supplies to treat patients, while the demand for intensive care units continues to grow and hospitals are overcrowded. Mexico has now reported almost 300,000 COVID-19 cases after reporting almost 4,500 new cases on Monday. During his usual press briefing at the National Palace, the Mexican Undersecretary of Prevention and Health Promotion reported that of the current cases, 29.26% are hospitalized and 70.74% are receiving outpatient treatment. He also noted that more than 184,000 patients have recovered from the virus, which he said was very encouraging. Meanwhile, the COVID-19 death toll stands at over 35,000. The doctor called on the population to continue to follow guidelines to curb the spread of the virus. Amidst the COVID-19 pandemic, Cuba is manufacturing ventilators, which are essential for the treatment of critically ill COVID-19 patients. The locally produced medical equipment, aside from providing assisted ventilation, includes oxygen measurement capability and applications with offline support. The ventilators are being developed at Havana's Neuroscience Center with funding from the European Union and the NGO MediCuba Switzerland, among others. The ventilators are expected to be ready by October. At the beginning of the pandemic, the Cuban government attempted to purchase several ventilators, but was unable to do so due to the criminal United States blockade against the island. On July 18th and 19th, the Concert for Cuba from Chicago's Hot House will unite artists online against the US blockade. The star-studded event will condemn the economic, commercial and financial blockade imposed on Cuba by the United States for almost 6 decades. Musicians Diane Warwick, Michael McDonald, John Cleary and many others will feature. The online concert will also see performances by Cuban stars such as La Orquesta Aragon, Alexander Abreu, Los Bamban, Omar Portuondo, among others. The event also supports the nomination of Cuba's Henry Reeve International Medical Contingent for the Nobel Peace Prize for its contributions to the fight against the novel coronavirus pandemic. The number of COVID-19 cases in Latin America and the Caribbean has increased significantly. According to the World Health Organization, Latin America registered over 650,000 new cases of the coronavirus and 23,000 new deaths in the beginning of July. In total, the region has so far reported 3 million cases and almost 140,000 deaths, with Brazil being the worst hit, followed by Peru and Chile. Meanwhile, Colombia and Argentina have recorded the highest daily figures of positive cases in the past week. The government of Antigua and Barbuda has moved one step closer to making the island of Barbuda an island fully powered by solar energy. Prime Minister Gaston Brown explained that the move stems from an agreement negotiated in 2017 after Bermuda was decimated by Hurricane Irma.
Decided to make these funds available towards the green energy project for Barbados. So the plan is to literally transform Barbados into a green island, to make it perhaps the first green island or first island to be powered exclusively by green energy within the Caribbean.
And our correspondent in Havana, Laura Palmero, brings us a roundup of news from the Caribbean region.
Thanks for the contact. Let's take a look at the most recent stories and news from Caribbean countries. And let's start with the Cuban Medical Brigade in Haiti.
Y ahí se han visto más de 150 pacientes.
Here we have some more than 150 patients that had positive results, especially those that come on time to solve the problem. Here in Haiti, because of cultural problems and also political and social issues, people prefer not to go to the hospital.
Cuban health professionals have been helping to fight COVID-19 in Haiti since April, and so far they have attended some of the most complex cases in the disease that plagues the country today. The 20 specialists of the Henry Reeve Brigade work in the main treatment center of the National Public Health System, located in the Central Avenue of Delmas in the capital. Possibly the most complex morbidities handled are assumed by Cuban health professionals, taking into account the confidence that the Asian people have in their work. Among the most common morbidities treated by the doctors are hypertension and diabetes, ailments suffered by some 2,350,000 Haitians. Haiti has recorded 6,690 COVID-19 cases and 139 deaths so far, mainly in Port-au-Prince, which accounts for more than 74% of the confirmed cases and almost half of the deaths. Next December, the Cuban Medical Brigade will celebrate 22 years of presence in Haiti after earthquakes, hurricanes, and a cholera epidemic. They now face the COVID-19 pandemic with encouraging results and the same commitment made 2 decades ago. 1 week after the presidential and legislative elections in the Dominican Republic, the total number of legislators that will make up the Chamber of Deputies remains to be defined. Dominicans went to the polls on July 5 to elect the president, vice president, 32 senators, and 190 deputies. And today, the final results are not known at the level of the latter. The demarcations with the greatest drawbacks are the National District and the Santo Domingo Este municipality of the Santo Domingo province, and the authorities blame the delay on the poor complexions of the minutes by the members of the Electoral College. Faced with this situation, various sectors request agility to complete the count and define the Chamber of Deputies and thus terminate the process that, according to the legislation, had 48 hours to report the results.
The president of Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee said this Monday that it was important to verify the gender equality all over the world in sports.
The president of the Trinidad and Tobago Olympic Committee, Brian Lewis, called for gender and race equality in sports worldwide. In his statement, Lewis defends non-discrimination in sports and stepped up his fight in solidarity with several athletes following the murder of George Floyd on May 25th in the United States. The head of sports committee asked the International Olympic Committee to lift the suspension of former United States medalist Vince Matthews and Wayne Collette after their historic protest on the award podium. Lewis, who is also chairman of the Caribbean National Olympic Committee, believes that the actions taken by former U.S. athletes serve as catalysts for the sad climax of Floyd's death at the hands of a white police officer.
And these are the most recent stories and news from Caribbean countries. Let's go back with you in the studio.
Thank you, Laura, and we're taking a very short break now, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The UN Food and Agriculture Organization noted on Monday that over the past 5 years, tens of millions of people have joined the ranks of the chronically undernourished, while the COVID-19 pandemic could tip over 100 million more people into chronic hunger by the end of 2020.
A preliminary assessment is that the COVID-19 pandemic may add between 83 and 132 million people to the total number of undernourished in the world in 2020. Depending, of course, on the decrease of growth of GDP scenarios that we use. What this means is that the situation and any progress that was made, for example, in poverty reduction in the last 10 years, have been reduced. And moreover, in the case of undernourishment, which has been increasing in the last years, the situation will get worse in a significant amount more of hungry people, which means that it will be even more difficult to be able to achieve SDG 2.
The World Health Organization warned on Monday that there would be no return to normality anytime soon, as too many countries were mishandling their response to the coronavirus pandemic. After a daily record of over 230,000 new coronavirus cases were reported on Sunday, the WHO said the pandemic was only going to get worse unless people stuck to the basics of physical distancing, hand washing and wearing masks. The WHO Director General warned that countries that were easing their way out of lockdowns were now witnessing a resurgence of the virus because they were not following proven methods to reduce the risks. He stressed that too many countries were headed in the wrong direction.
Yesterday, 230,000 cases of COVID-19 were reported to WHO. Almost 80% of those cases were reported from just 10 countries, and 50% come from just 2 countries. Although the number of daily deaths remains relatively stable, there is a lot to be concerned about. All countries are at risk of the virus, as you know. I want to be straight with you. There will be no return to the old normal for the foreseeable future. I repeat, there will be no return to the old normal for the foreseeable future. But there is a roadmap to a situation where we can control the disease and get on with our lives.
China announced sanctions against 3 senior US Republican lawmakers on Monday in response to similar sanctions imposed against Chinese officials by the United States government. The sanctions were imposed on Senators Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz, along with Congressman Chris Smith, and were announced just days after the US imposed visa bans and asset freezes on several Chinese officials, including the Communist Party chief in Xiangxiang, Qin Kuan-kuo. The move is the latest in the building of tensions between the 2 countries. The US presidential race continues, with the latest poll confirming that Democratic candidate Joe Biden is about 5 points ahead of President Donald Trump in the southern state of Texas. According to a poll conducted by local media and the University of Texas, Biden would get 46% of the state's vote, while Trump would secure 41%, while 14% of voters have yet to decide whom to vote for. Texas represents one of the electoral strongholds of the current president, and no Democrat has managed to win the state since Jimmy Carter. The presidential elections will be held in November this year. And the United States on Sunday reported over 62,000 new COVID-19 cases, according to Johns Hopkins University. The total number of confirmed cases now stands at over 3.4 million. Meanwhile, the death toll has risen to almost 138,000. German Chancellor Angela Merkel noted it is unclear whether EU leaders will reach an agreement on a €750 billion pandemic recovery fund during this week's summit, amid resistance from some member states.
We will discuss on Friday how we can reach a common agreement. We still have different positions. I cannot say whether we will reach an agreement on Friday, but it will in any case be good for Europe. The task is immense, and so the answer must be great, and it is not possible to commit to all the details in advance, but a special effort is needed that makes it clear that Europe wants to stick together in these difficult times. This has a political dimension.
European Union Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell called on the Turkish government this Monday to create an environment of trust as diplomatic tensions continue over Turkey's latest moves in the Eastern Mediterranean and its relations with Libya.
A consensus among member states that the European Union-Turkey relations are currently under continuous strain, that there are worrying developments, in particular in the Eastern Mediterranean regarding Libya, that affects directly our interests. Thus, several serious issues must be addressed by Turkey in order to change the current confrontation dynamics and create an environment of trust with Turkey, which everybody wishes. But We stress also that the Turkish unilateral actions, in particular in the Eastern Mediterranean, which run counter to EU interests, to the sovereign rights of European Union member states, and to international law, must come to an end.
The United Arab Emirates is preparing to send a probe to Mars in another major milestone. The country wants to be the first Arab nation to join the United States, India, the former Soviet Union and the European Space Agency, all of whom have successfully sent missions to orbit the Red Planet. The UAE has already built a nuclear power program and sent a man to space. Meanwhile, China is preparing to launch its first rover later this month. Authorities in India reported that more than 1 million people were affected by flooding in the northeast of the country, where the death toll over the past week has risen to 13. The country was first hit in mid-May when pre-monsoon rains arrived, causing floods that killed 11 people, while another 20 died in landslides caused by days of incessant downpours. According to official figures, almost 29,000 people, mostly in rural regions, have been evacuated from their homes and taken to relief camps. Flooding is an annual phenomenon in India's northeast, claiming hundreds of lives each year. And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Ivory Coast Vice President Daniel Kablan-Duncan stepped down this Monday. The announcement came just days after the sudden death of Prime Minister Amadou Gon Coulibaly on July 8th. According to a statement read by Chief of Staff Patrick Achi, the Vice President handed in his resignation to the President, citing personal reasons, on February 27th, and after several conversations, the President accepted it. A veteran figure of Ivorian politics, Duncan served as Foreign Minister from 2011 to 2012 and then as Prime Minister in charge of Economy and Finance from 2012 to 2017. In January 2017, he became the first Vice President in Ivory Coast history, taking up a post created under a new constitution adopted in 2016. The first Kenyan doctor to die from COVID-19 was buried this Monday. Health officials wearing personal protective equipment accompanied the body of Dr. Doreen Adisa Lugaliki, whose funeral was attended by just a few relatives. Dr. Lugaliki was 38 years old and died on Friday, 4 days after being admitted to hospital. She leaves behind twin daughters. According to Kenya's health ministry, nearly 200 people have died of COVID-19 in the country, while the number of confirmed cases has now surpassed 10,000.
Hard for us. Just on Monday, we took her to hospital, and Wednesday she's in ICU. Friday morning she's dead. To us, we never expected that because we knew we'll go with her to hospital and come back home so that we can take care of her and go on with life. For my sister, she had diabetes. Doctors call it DKA, and that is what killed her. So please, the people should avoid this stigmatization. It feels so bad when somebody looks at you like he wants to run away from you and think maybe you can infect them.
Morocco on Monday announced a return to lockdown measures in the northern port city of Tangiers in the face of a new outbreak of the novel coronavirus weeks after easing nationwide restrictions. The city of about 1 million inhabitants was locked down at noon local time, with public transport suspended, cafes and public spaces closed and movement restricted. Residents are only allowed to leave their homes in cases of extreme necessity. The Interior Ministry said that exceptional authorization from local authorities would be required for movement within or beyond the city. Morocco, with a population of 34 million, has recorded almost 16,000 cases and 255 deaths. Since Mandela, daughter of South African hero Nelson Mandela and anti-apartheid activist and politician Winnie Madikizela Mandela, has passed away. According to a local broadcaster, Cincy, who was serving as South Africa's ambassador to Denmark since 2015, died in a hospital in Johannesburg on Sunday evening. The Mandela Legacy Foundation, speaking on behalf of the family, announced that memorial and funeral arrangements for Cincy would be announced in the course of the week. President Cyril Ramaphosa expressed condolences on her passing, which came just days before the anniversary of Nelson Mandela's birth, and said she brought home the unshakable resolve of our fight for freedom.
honor of my father and the legacy and the sacrifice that he made for humanity. He gave up 67 years of his life. His ancestors only gave up 67 minutes on his birthday. But obviously our hope and our intention is that one day there should be like a global movement for change where we make every day a Mandela Day.
South African citizens have expressed support for President Cyril Ramaphosa's decision to suspend alcohol sales again as coronavirus infections spike and the health system risks being overwhelmed.
I think the alcohol ban is a good idea. The reason is people are reckless and there is more deaths on the road. People are misbehaving, people are drunk and they're not staying at home.
Okay, I think it's a good thing because a lot of people are suffering from the coronavirus situation, the pandemic. So what he said, Mr. Ramaphosa said yesterday, I think it's a good thing because it will decrease the infection.
Prime Minister of the Libyan Government of National Accord, Fayez Sarraj, on Sunday held talks with military commanders to discuss the situation in the country and possible military operations. According to a statement issued by the PM's office, the talks focused on reviewing measures to secure the liberated areas with the possibility of operations in Sirte and Jufra. The meeting also studied the reorganisation of the military institution and enhancing the defence capabilities of the Libyan army. In March, the UN-recognised Government of National Accord launched Operation Peace Storm against Field Marshal Khalifa Haftar, commander of the eastern-based Libyan National Army, to counter his attacks on the capital, Tripoli, that began in April 2019. Following the death of 4 people in protests on Friday, anti-government leader Mahmoud Dicko has urged his supporters to refrain from violence and demonstrate peacefully.
This movement that we have set in motion, I truly believe, is the beginning of a hope that must remain and that must continue, but with dignity, with calm, with respect for others.
And we've come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. You can also join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Katrina Goss and thank you for watching.